All right, everyone, welcome. My name is Caroline with Chalkbeat. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thanks so much for everyone for joining us today. A couple quick things, and then I'm going to hand it over to my friend Alexa with the Education Trust. First of all, we're just so glad y'all could be joining us. This is actually the second installment of a conversation we started last week with high schoolers. If you haven't gotten a chance to view that yet, or you weren't able to attend that particular event, we'll share an article link in our chat that you can save for later and watch that video and get a recap there. For those of you who don't know, Chalkbeat is a nonprofit news organization dedicated to writing about education and equity in Tennessee. College students across the nation, and certainly here in our state, are experiencing radically different semesters from each other and even compared to last spring. And as we think about how to better the experiences of students during this tumultuous pandemic, we at Chalkbeat think it's absolutely essential to hear from students directly. That's why we're so grateful you're here and for this space, and to Education Trust in Tennessee for making this event happen. I'm about to hand it over to Alexa to get us started, but before I do, a couple housekeeping items. We'd love to get a feel for who's in the room, so I'm going to ask my colleague Devon to start a poll. We're just going to ask you to identify who you are. So take a quick moment, choose the option that best fits you, and once we get some folks voted on that, we'll share those results. I'd also encourage you to introduce yourself further in the chat box. You can also use the chat box if you have any technical issues or just have a comment that's not a question for the panelists. So use the chat box for any tech issues. We are monitoring that, and just for any comments for the panelists. Use the Q&A box, which is further on the right of your screen, the bottom of your screen, hopefully, for questions for our great student panelists. We'll have a time for audience Q&A at the end. So thank you. I'm going to share the results of our poll. Thanks for those who participated. Got some parents in the room, educators, quite a few students, obviously, school leaders, all categories represented, have a policymaker, higher education officials. So that's great. We're excited you all are here. This conversation is being recorded and will be shared afterward for folks who aren't able to join. We'll send an email with it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Alexa, Assistant Director for the Education Trust in Tennessee, who's going to kick us off.
Thank you, Caroline. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. We are so excited that you've joined us today. I'm Alexa Barajas Clark. I'm the Assistant Director for Tennessee at the Education Trust. At the Education Trust, we advocate for high academic achievement of all students, but especially for students of color and for those living in poverty. We believe that students have a lot of important things to say, always, but that is probably more true now than ever. It's just a critical time to hear directly from students what's working, what's not, but also to hear the recommendations for how school leaders and policymakers can better help them successfully navigate the year ahead. In a few moments, you're going to hear from 9 college students from across the entire state of Tennessee. They are part of our Empower Ed project, which is aimed at helping students use their voice to be advocates for the changes they wish to see in their schools and their communities. You can learn more about this project and read about these specific students at empoweredtn.org. I'll drop that information in the chat here shortly. And when you go there, you'll actually get to see each one of these students rendered as the superheroes that we know they are. And you could also read about their superpowers. We encourage you today throughout the conversation to tweet about this event using the hashtags TN Student Voice and Empower Ed. I'll also drop that in the chat in case you didn't get it. And now I also have the privilege of introducing our 2 moderators for today's conversation, Delise Smith-Barrow from the Hechinger Report, and Trey Cunningham, a senior from Brownsville, Tennessee, which is near Memphis. And he's a student that serves on the Education Trust in Tennessee Policy Council. So with that, I'll let Delise take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Alexa said, my name is Delise, and I'm with the Hechinger Report. And just to update you all on Hechinger, if you're not familiar, We cover inequality and innovation in education, and we really run the gamut from, early childhood, preschool, all the way through college. But I specialize on college, so I write a lot about college students, their professors, the challenges of getting into college, getting through college, finding the money to pay for college. So this conversation will be really, really helpful for me and other people who want to learn more about what's happening with college students. We know that this is such a rough year for you, and it would be excellent if we can just learn more in terms of what stories are happening that are not being told. What do you want professors, politicians, other people to know about going to school during the pandemic? So I think this will be really informative for so many people listening and watching. And also I have a co-moderator, Trey, like Alexa mentioned. Trey is a dynamic high school student, far more mature than I was in high school. So I think he will be a great addition to this conversation. So I'm going to pass things off to Trey. He's going to talk a little bit about himself and then really get us all started.
Trey, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to serve as a co-moderator for today's panel discussion. As Ms. Delise said, my name is Trey Cunningham, and I'm a senior from Brownsville, Tennessee, about an hour away from Memphis. Some things that have definitely tied me to equitable education and getting rid of disparities in education is my work with organizations such as the NAACP. I serve as a youth chair member. And one of my most recent and most popular roles is I'm a member for the Education Trust of Tennessee's P12 Policy Council. Conversations like the one that we're about to have today, they're critical because they give us the information that we need to know, and we can utilize this information to help us mitigate this health crisis, but also the effects that it is having on our education system, and it is creating bigger divides and bigger issues than the ones that we had before. So that's a little bit about me, but to just start it off with the student panel, I'd like some members from our panel to just say your name, your city, your college or university, your grade level, and one word to describe how you're feeling right now with everything going on. And so I guess I will start with William.
Hi everyone, as Trey said, my name is William Collins. I am a junior at the illustrious Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm a current political science and music major. And one word to describe how I'm feeling right now is elated, honestly.
Do we have anybody else who wants to go next? Kadisha?
Hi everyone, I'm Kadisha Gordon from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I attend UTC, a political science and public service major and non-traditional student. And one word to describe how I'm feeling right now is anxious.
Brandon, how about you?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Goggins. I'm originally from Smyrna, Tennessee, but I currently attend the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and I'm a freshman. A word to describe how I'm feeling right now, I'm going to say grateful.
I felt the word grateful. How about you, Ashton?
Hi everyone, my name is Ashton Mayo Beavers. I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I attend Mercer University in Georgia, Macon, Georgia. I'm a freshman there. And I think among all the other words everybody said, I think enthusiastic.
Allie?
Hello everyone, my name is Allie Garcia. I go to Cumberland University. I'm a senior, and I think one word to describe how I feel right now would be eager.
Mateo?
Hello everyone, my name is Mateo Francisco Andres. I'm attending Pellissippi State Community College, located down in Hardin Valley, Knoxville, Tennessee. If there's a word to describe how I feel, it's two words. It's goal driven. I'm just extremely ambitious.
And lastly, but not least, Miss Ruby Aguilar.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruby Aguilar and I am a current senior at Lipscomb University studying to become an English teacher for high school. I'm located in Nashville, Tennessee, and one word to describe how I'm feeling today is appreciative.
I thank you all for your input and letting us know a little bit about you and how you're feeling during this health crisis and everything that's going on. I would like to pass it over to Ms. Delise at this time to do the next question.
Okay, now that we all know who we are, where we're from, and what we're studying in school, I want to kind of get into how you're feeling about the last 7 months. So more specifically, you know, when in-person school stopped last semester, what was that like for you? I know quite a few of you said you were, I think, in your second or third year in school. So what was it like back in March when suddenly, you know, you had to maybe pack up your stuff and go home, all this uncertainty? And even if you were a freshman, I mean, if you were a senior in high school last year, also what was it like? So just kind of break that down for us. And anyone can just jump in. Or I can call on you. I think Ashton will have a good thing to say.
For me, because I was a senior, it was like this big gap of this ending and this new beginning. And, you know, usually you have the summer to prepare, but we had these months to prepare for uncertainty. So we really didn't know I didn't really know what I was getting into, because then there was no predictions of when this would end. I remember my peers in my senior class, we were like, this is gonna be over in 2 weeks. And we were gonna see each other in a little bit, but little did we know this would be continuing on and for we don't know how long. So I think for me, a lot of it was just navigating the new transition and in using the time that I now had to prepare for that and not over prepare, but also know that things change in an instant, and kind of getting that idea in my head day by day that things change so quickly was something very big for me. And getting used to these connections, having them online, and that the value of them and the importance of them were going to be something that's going to last for a long time. And knowing that change happens so quickly is something that was a big part of those years in between the end of senior year and the beginning of freshman year.
And William, I think you said that you are a junior at Fisk. So you were in college for a little while before things shut down. You had a feel for what traditional college life was like. So tell us about how you were feeling when things shut down suddenly in the spring.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was kind of very shocking and scary. I had just gotten back to Nashville from spending spring break in Miami. I went to go visit my sister because she stays in Miami Gardens. And her and I had a lot of fun. Right before that, I was actually in Washington, D.C., representing Fisk University at the APAC Policy Conference. And, you know, I wasn't really expecting things to like shift so quick. And it was a lot of things going on at one time. Because I'm sure Ruby knows about this, because right around the time when people were being sent home, Nashville had experienced a really bad tornado. So we had to cope with that. And for me, I didn't really experience it because I wasn't in Tennessee at the time. But when I came back, I saw the devastation going on. So I was like, wow, I have to work on this. I was planning with other leaders from universities surrounding Fisk, such as Tennessee State and Vanderbilt and Belmont, so we could do like a community cleanup type of thing. And then to get the notification that we're going home really shook me, because I had so many things that I had to do, and I was planning on, one of my friends was running an SGA presidential campaign that I was a part of on their team. So we had to find a way to put everything online. And I remember exactly how it happened. So I got back to campus, I believe Sunday, March 7th. We had our SEC week kickoff, which introduced our SGA candidates. And the week was going pretty well, but then they suspended activities that Thursday. We were like, well, what's going on? That Friday, I was in the middle of a U.S. history lecture, and I got the email from our president at the time, and it said that the campus was closing. We had to be gone by the 21st. So I was like, oh my goodness, whoa, what is going on? So I'm also a resident assistant, so I had to maneuver that as well. And I wasn't even scheduled to leave till the 25th. That's when resident assistants were scheduled to leave. However, the following Tuesday, March 16th, they sent us an email saying, well, we told you guys the 21st, so you've got to leave the next day by 5 o'clock. So it just threw everybody into disarray. It threw me into disarray. I didn't know what to do. I was calling my mom like, hey, like, what am I supposed to do? But I will say that life before COVID is something that I do desperately miss. A lot of people weren't as scared, I think there's a lot of fear going on because this virus is actually very serious and very real. But it's something I miss because I miss being able to interact with people. Don't get me wrong, I love doing Zoom calls with individuals because I can still be able to connect with people, but I would want to be in person. And I miss the traditional aspects of hanging out on the yard and doing homework outside and things like that.
And one thing, everyone, if you want to share this conversation on social media, we're using the hashtag TN, capital TN student voice, or empower ed, and ed is capitalized. So feel free to share comments, questions, any thoughts on social media as well. But since William mentioned that, Ruby, you might have a different take, a different experience when things shut down. Tell us about how you were feeling.
Yeah, right now that William was talking, I was like, yeah, it was pretty hectic back in March because the tornado did happen. It was like March 3rd, I believe, that it happened. And students in MNPS were, I was doing a placement at the time. So students in MNPS were all out of school for the rest of that week because a lot of communities were impacted. So I missed my placement that whole week, come back the next week for like 2 days. And then it's like, we're going into quarantine. And it was just one of those things where, like William said, like you just get an email from the president saying, everyone needs to evacuate campus. We didn't know if classes would be virtual at that point because I was going into my spring break as like many other schools. So in that aspect, as far as like academics, it was just all over the place. It was crazy. I didn't even get to say goodbye to my students at my placement. We were just kind of told like, you can't go back for health purposes. But then also for me, once they said like, COVID is becoming this big issue, I began to worry about my family because my dad and my mom were immunocompromised. And so I was like, I'm not going out, I'm staying home. So for me, from like March through even like mid-June, the beginning of July, I was just home. Everything I did was from home. I couldn't go out to do meetings or anything. It all had to be like virtually through Zoom. And so that's kind of the environment that I was in, just working from home, for my parents' safety, but also for my own safety, because at the time as well, everything was so uncertain with COVID. I feel like there's still some uncertainty with it too. But yeah, it was a crazy time. The last few months, it's been a crazy time.
Crazy definitely seems to be the word that I always sum it up with, so I can relate. But Khadijah, I know that you have some thoughts too. How are you feeling? What was going through your mind?
For me, I had a very unique situation because, like I said, I am a non-traditional student. I'm also a single parent, and I feel like students like me are very underrepresented at the university, and so a lot of times, faculty and staff, they may forget about students like me who don't actually live on campus, who actually have children that they support alone. And then not only that UTC shut down, but my daughter's school shut down as well. And she's 2 years old. So imagine having to work from home and do school from home and then, manage a 2-year-old. It was very hectic. And, we were still expected to be on a Zoom call, at the specific time that we were supposed to be in class, and it was a lot to manage. So during that time, I just wish there was a little more flexibility. And then also like William mentioned, Chattanooga experienced a tornado after, COVID, which was, it was very like interesting for me because my mom lived in an area that experienced most of the devastation in East Bernier here in Chattanooga, and actually just seeing that firsthand was kind of like shocking on top of dealing with COVID. And then following that, you had the media trauma that I don't think a lot of people realize that really affects people of color. And so you had all these things coming at you at once, but it does teach you to be adaptable to all situations and just remain resilient and stay on top of everything.
I think resiliency is definitely what we all will need to make it through. Unfortunately, there is no specific date where we know COVID will be gone or we can return to our classes, our communities in the way that we would like. So I'm impressed that you all are just kind of pushing through amidst so much uncertainty. But I'm going to turn it back over to Trey. He has some questions for you about, more that colleges and administrators could know.
So as we just had that discussion about, what everything looked like when we stopped last semester, I want to direct a question towards Kadisha, William, and Mateo about what in your mind would you want your university or college leaders to know about your life right now, about your specific story? What do you want your chancellors to know? What do you want your deans to know right now about you? And so I guess we'll start with Mateo, and we'll start with him and go from there.
As a freshman, it's kind of it's going to be challenging already. So I really had trouble understanding of where I need to go to get my materials that I need. So this has been extremely challenging. I know they send me emails all the time saying they understand that it's a time of uncertainty of who knows what's going on. But yeah, it's been just challenging. It's like a barrier that we all need to get through. So that's how it is for me.
Thank you, Kadisha.
Sure. So I would want my college and university leaders to know and just understand that adaptability for students looks different depending on where we are in our lives. And, I understand that the entire world has been impacted by this pandemic. However, students at various levels also have other things that they're struggling with to get used to this new norm. And we have additional things to accept other than virtual learning and life as it is now. So therefore, like not really expecting handouts, but students need some flexibility and understanding. And then also how I mentioned about, the media trauma and social unrest that we see going on often in the media during these times. We experience as students of color microaggressions in the classroom at an alarming rate. And I just had a very disturbing situation actually happening this week where I had to reach out to one of my professors and let him know of some of the things that, we deal with in the class from students. And so that's just something to keep in mind that I think that they may forget about as well.
And I think it is very important that they know in particular what each type of student is going through, because there's not a generalization for just one type of student. We come from all different walks of life and we all go through different things every day. So I would like to end this question with William.
For me, one thing that I would want not only just my professors, but administration at my university to know and understand is that, yes, I have to start with this. Some of us decided to come back to campus. I made the decision to come back to campus because, again, I'm a resident assistant, and also I have things that I need to do this year. I'm pretty sure, like they say in high school, your junior year is one of the most busiest years because you're preparing for college, you're taking your ACTs, your SATs. So it's the same type of thing applied to college, because as a junior, you're studying for your LSATs, your MCATs, your GREs, your figuring out what internship you want to do after you graduate or what you want to do right before you graduate. It's the year that I have to be here because I have to get things done. I have to be able to be ready, like, hey, when they call my name, May 2nd, 2022, I'll know exactly what I need to do and where I'm going. But what I want my professors to understand is that, yes, I did come back to campus and I am willing to do these virtual classes, but you've got to be patient with me the same way I've got to be patient with you. The old adage of respect is earned, not given, is something that you can apply to this as well. I think a lot of professors and administration are getting a little bit upset because they think that we're slacking. Honestly, truly, I'm just tired of looking at a screen all day, every day. I want to be able to go out and look and see what's going on rather than seeing my professor just saying something to me on camera. I'm more of a person who loves in-person learning because it helps me to actually understand, as opposed to when I'm just looking at a screen, I'm teaching myself and I don't even know if I'm teaching myself the correct methods and the correct way to do things. So, and I need them to understand, like, hey, I need you to help me so I can help you. Yeah.
Well, that closes out my question. I'm passing it back to you, Delise.
I'm glad you mentioned that, William, about your choice in whether to return to campus or to keep learning, from home, because that's been a huge decision. Sometimes the college or university makes it for you and says you cannot come to campus, but I know at Fisk and other places you can certainly go to school on campus. So I want you all to tell me about where you're attending classes. Is it from home? Is it on campus? And how do you feel about that decision? So Brandon, where are you taking your courses from?
I made the decision to come to campus just because. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what that noise is, if y'all can hear that. But I made the decision to come to campus because although all my classes are online, I still wanted to get that, that little taste of college experience, even though we're limited to like what we can do. Like I'm a freshman, so like I wanted to like begin my new chapter. I'm an independent now, and I wanted to like get that feeling of being away from home and like trying to like live by myself. And that's ultimately like why I chose to come on campus. So I feel good about my my decision, which reflects back to my word grateful that I know that I mentioned at the beginning. I'm just grateful that I'm able to be here, that I'm able to still learn. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity. So that's why I chose to come up here.
Did anyone choose to not return to campus? Like they had the option to learn on campus and they decided, I'm not going to do that? Anyone? No? Okay. Ashton, I know you're on campus at Mercer, right?
Yeah, they actually didn't give us a decision. It was kind of, we have all in-person classes and some of our courses are hybrid. So they basically said, we're going to be on campus. And if you're not on campus, you're basically deferring, and they had some case-by-case basis as well, where they're like, if somebody had autoimmune disease or something like that, or some financial reason, that they would grant them decision to stay home and do online classes. But we have in-person classes, which is very scary. There's a benefit that we're a smaller school, and I will say, like everybody said, it's great to have in-person classes, but like the added fear of that the person next to you could have COVID and be passing it, and let's say you go back home and you're passing that, it's just, there's a lot of fear with it, and every day you have to trace who you're hanging out with. And that's like, when you're in a big college campus, you can't trace everybody who you've had come in contact with, and all the masking policies, and if you take your mask off once, and like the 6 feet distance and keeping that at all times. It's very crazy for that to be in your front of your mind and your back of mind all the time while you're trying to study and get your education at the same time. So like my brain is just totally split between like my health and keeping everybody else safe versus trying to get my education and getting an A on this calculus test. So it's been really crazy. I like the decision because I like in-person classes, But at the same time, I wish they gave the decision to students so they weren't forced to come here, and because a lot of students made that decision because they would lose their scholarships if they deferred. And because they wouldn't be coming in as freshman students. So that's why a lot of people here were forced to come. And while many people like it as freshmen, it's just kind of hard when some people are like in hazmat goggles and gloves and everything, and they're still going to school because that's the only choice that they had.
No, that's a tough one, not really having a say. Sounds like your choices were pretty limited, unless you had an autoimmune disease or, you know, some really extenuating circumstance. And that's such an important component of what's happening right now. Do you feel like you have a lot of options, a lot of choices for how you can learn, where you can learn, what resources are available to you? Or do you feel like those are very limited and you just got to roll with whatever is handed to you? So I'm glad you kind of made that point, Ashton. Allie, where are you learning from, and how did you make the decision on where to learn?
I am currently enrolled in Cumberland University as a residential assistant. So it was kind of my job to come back to campus, but also I will say I was fortunate enough to given the choice whether to come back on campus. Our school allowed either to opt for all online or all on campus. However, we are doing the alternative A-B schedule, which means depending on where your last name falls, you'll either come to school Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, which I feel like was probably the best choice. Everyone continues to wear masks, and so far we haven't had an outbreak on campus. The school is supposed to be very transparent in updating us with the current cases or anyone that has been exposed to it. They're tracing, we're filling out like daily symptom trackers where we just tell our symptoms, and then additionally we're being told to scan in at the rooms just to make sure that we can keep kind of a track of, you know, where everyone's been, if you have been in contact with someone. So that's what Cumberland's been doing. But I feel very grateful that I did have the option to decide whether I wanted to be on campus or not.
No, flexibility is wonderful. And it's, even though I feel like to a certain extent, it can be hard to keep up with the schedule where it's like you have this day, but not that day. Like it's a little bit more work on the part of the students, but again, like it's nice that you all have a choice and you can kind of make a decision that you feel like is best for you and maybe even your family, since I know a lot of students, they might live with their family. Khadijah talked about, you know, she's a single mom, so it's not just about you when you're making these decisions about where to live and where to learn. But now I'm gonna hand it over to Trey, and he has another question.
Well, so my question will be directed towards the college freshmen, and I want Brandon, Ashton, and Mateo to describe you all's orientation and onboarding experience as a college freshman, and how has the transition from high school to college been like to you? And I guess we'll start with Ashton.
Well, our orientation / convocation was in person again, but like in our stadium. So they had us like spread between like 3 seats each and wearing masks and everything, which is a cool experience. But they had to cut out some like the customs. So like touching the statue's head, of course we can't touch that, multi-touch surfaces. So it's like the little things, you know, like we wouldn't be able to do this, and like some of our orientation groups, we couldn't really get that connection like we wanted to, like past years have. But the transition overall, I think they've been pretty accommodating just for extra Zoom calls. Like I had a Zoom call with my PA today, just checking in and how I'm doing with the transition. And I think they're being extra accommodating with the limits of technology and everything. I think the transition though, over the summer was pretty hard because, you know, a lot of the information we weren't being updated as much as I would love to on like when things were happening, because these are our futures and this is what we're trying to figure out. And it was like we were being let know they were informing us, we'll try that this time. They were informing us way later than we could expect. And it was, I think it was harder for the families and for the students just to accommodate the student who's going on to this next chapter of their life without any preparation. And I know for me, like Kadisha and Ruby, that's when I was coming forward from a tornado as well, and kind of picking up that ruin. And I had just moved to another city to continue my education because we had no Wi-Fi in my house. My house was damaged. And so I had to fix that part of life and continue on. And so I feel like it's being addressed as we're doing online, but at the same time, there's no acknowledgement for what other students have gone through financially. Enough acknowledgement of students have gone in deficits of finances and to their homes and everything like that, and to their mental state. So I think there could be more in that end as far as freshmen goes, because on top of getting this transition, there's a lot that we haven't dealt with that has happened in the past months.
Yes. How about you, Brandon?
So the transition going from high school to college it was like weird because, you know, we're going to school, and then we find out about this, like, you know, pandemic that like might cause us to like have to leave school for like however amount of time we didn't know at the time. So at the moment we're thinking, oh yeah, we're about to just get in like an additional week to our spring break. Yay, we're excited. But like little did we know that was going to be like our last day of high school. So like it was like kind of like a slap in the face. So like we didn't really like know what to expect, like what steps to take from there. Like because that's our last year before like moving on to our next chapter of college. So like it was like, how I explain it? It was just interesting trying to like adapt to like having our classes online, like when we had gone to school all this time, you know, in person, what we're used to. And then out of nowhere, we have to adapt to going online classes. And then on top of that, having like online orientations and meetings with our advisors. Like it was kind of weird. Like it was something that we had to just like adjust to, but it was just like a weird adaptation that we just had to, you know, deal with. And coming into college, like we've had more time to like prepare essentially because like, you know, with the situation that we had, but it's just weird coming into it, like having not been in like real school since like March, and now we're like here. So yeah, I don't really have
I understand. Yeah. And I see what you mean by, you know, you left and then you thought you were going to come back. You were just going to have an extra week and thought you were going to have to come back. See, when this all came about, I was a high school junior. I'm a senior now. And I thought that it would just be about a week or two. We were going to come back to school. And that is not what happened. So I'm going to finish this question off with Mateo.
For me, it was, I already knew we were gonna get off early. It was pretty obvious to me because the outbreak was getting serious. The news outlet was going off, so I was like, I might as well prepare myself. So that's when I went and searched out for a job, worked full time, the whole spring, the whole summer. I was just in my grind, getting ready for college. So, but I feel like that prepared me for being able to keep up with the work that college gives us. So it gave me like a little push of saying, hey, you know, I worked this job and what else can I do? So it really made me it shaped me into a person who looked at a challenge and was like, hey, I can actually do this. So it's for as a freshman, the high school work that they give us, it's not the same as college. It's not. So it's a whole lot different. So I just got a lot used to it, but it's at the same time it's kind of difficult not knowing where to find your resources at, and just finding the right time to reach out to your professor, seeing when your professor can meet up with you, because they have tons of students. It's not just you in the room or you in the classroom. They have like other students, so it's really challenging having a one-on-one conversation with them virtually. So that's it for me.
And I applaud you for taking on that initiative and adding another challenge on top and just keeping on top of everything. I'm passing it over to Ms. Delise now.
And so thinking about, what Mateo said about how you have to even figure out when you can reach professors, what's the best means of reaching them, how you have to kind of figure that out since things aren't as accessible as they used to be. I have a question for William and a question for Allie. When you think about what's needed to make the next, I guess, 2 months of the semester, to make them strong, to make them bearable, to make them pleasant, what's one thing your professors or the administrators could do today to support you to make it through the end of the semester?
Something that I think, I'm going to go ahead and answer both sides of that, professors and administrators. For professors, one thing that I would like for them to do or understand again is that just because I'm sitting in a hybrid style format or virtual does not mean that I'm not busy. I would really want them to understand that, hey, he still has other classes. Like, I'm not sure how everyone else or what everyone else is taking, but I'm taking 18 credit hours, not because I want to, it's because I have to, because I'm determined to be out of here by May 2nd, 2022. So I would just need them to understand, like, hey, just because you think that I'm not busy does not mean that I'm not busy. I'm rolling. And on top of that, I have classwork to worry about. I have to worry about my residents. My residence is a whole different situation because, and Allie can attest to this, when you're dealing with residents in a dorm, they're always going to come knocking on your door. They're always going to blow your phone up. They're always going to say, hey, can you help me with this? I need this done with my room. And that's literally what's been happening. As soon as the freshmen moved in, because Fisk University is actually on a hybrid plan where for 7 weeks, the freshmen will be here and then they'll go home. And the next 7 weeks, see what I'm talking about? They're knocking on my door right now. And so in the next 7 weeks, what will happen is upperclassmen will come. So it's like they're always going to need something, and they're always calling me. They're always knocking on my door, even though when I'm tired, they're just still here. But so that's one thing I need professors to understand. We still have a lot of things going on in our lives. And then opposed to that, you also have, I'm just gonna ignore them because they are always at my door. I need time to myself. And then you have administration. I think they need to understand, like, hey, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, we still need you to help guide us because we need you. Especially, financial aid is always a big burden for every college student. And this is the hardest I've ever had trying to find out my financial aid, what's going on with my financial aid. I finally just got my balance together when I know I shouldn't have been paying anything. I didn't pay anything because I was like, I'm not going to pay. I ain't got to pay nothing. But it finally got worked out when it should have been worked out the end of July when we were supposed to be clear. So that's what's been going on. So that's what I would want. Excuse me while I go handle my residence.
I think I'll follow in with what William said. For Cumberland University specifically, it's been very hectic up here, but in a good way. With COVID, of course, like being a leader on campus, it's a little bit more frustrating because there's certain paths or things that you have to adapt to or navigate now as a leader, especially as an RA. And I'm also a president ambassador, so it's like reaching out to my students. How do I do that? How do I still connected with them when I can't see them every day? Additionally, like navigating through an uncertainty of what if one of our residents gets COVID, like what responsibility or who does that responsibility fall on? Because we have certain places in which people can resort to living if they do get COVID, but then, there's things in logistics like who is taking them food, are they getting the attention that they need? Additionally, with all these social movements happening, we've also been working really hard to uplift our spirits. And we've seen a lot of student action that wants to speak up, and we want to hear their voices, and we're sharing our voices out. So I think with whole COVID and social issues, I think it's just a big blend of just uncertainty, and then just, you know, treating every day different, like just waking up every day and taking it day by day. But I mean, I still feel very grateful to be where I'm at, and so we're just taking it one day at a time.
Thank you. I think Trey has one more question for some of you, and then we're gonna go to some audience questions.
Yes, so this last question that I'm asking is directed towards Brandon and Kandisha, and it is about how can your college or university support your mental health at this moment? I know that this public health crisis has caused a lot of mental issues for a lot of students all across Tennessee, from issues like economic recession on account of social isolation. That, you know, isn't a good combination for a strong mental mindset. So how do you feel as though your university can support your mental health at this moment, and other students as well? And I'll start with Brandon.
All right, so I don't want to seem dramatic when I say this, but like I feel like all the other students can like back me up on this because we talked about this before. I feel like just because like classes are online, our professors are like starting to give us like more and more work. Like seems like they're doubling the amount of work. Like exactly. Thank you. So I feel like I'm not gonna tell them like to like limit the work, because like at the end of the day, they're doing their job. They're doing what they're like doing to be told. But I just feel like the amount of work, like on top of like having to do all of this stuff online, it's like causing like even more stress within students' brains. And I just feel like I don't really know what they should do about this situation. I don't know if they should have like classes or like places you can go to like vent about it, or I don't really know. I just know that as far as work, it's just a lot on top of a lot. And I feel like if one teacher gives us so much work to do, that's gonna like limit our time to work on stuff for another teacher that's also giving us a lot of stuff to do. So it's just like messing with our heads and like making us, we're just, you know what I'm trying to say? We're just going all over the place, and it's just crazy. So I don't know if they need to like have like a mental venting little session, like that could be held on Zoom calls per se. I don't really know what they could do about that situation, but students are stressing, and I speak for a lot when I say that. So that's just one factor that I believe is causing a lot of stress within the student body. So thank you.
And I understand what you mean from even a high school standpoint. Our teachers are giving us more work than they normally would. And that's just here in public education level, pre-K through 12th grade. So now I'm going to pass it over to Kandisha. What do you think? How could your university or college help you with your mental health, or any students in Tennessee?
I actually was going to say the exact same thing that Brandon said. It seems like the rigor and the workload has definitely picked up since we have been online, and just needing more support with that. So if that means, you know, having to send more emails than usual, just, you know, guiding us on, you know, where to even find info, even though it may seem, you know, simple and easy for a college student to do. It's just we're having to navigate through so much. So extra reminders here and there doesn't hurt, or wouldn't hurt anyone. So yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest things that I have noticed. And, you know, I understand the need to make sure that, you know, we're still learning on that higher level, and it is still getting that accreditation, but it seems like it is, you know, a way bigger workload. And there's just being supportive, like I said, just understanding, you know, that everybody is navigating through difficult situations, even though we may be online, we may be virtual, everything else is mostly online or virtual. So if you're like me, you have cabin fever most of the time. So it drives you a little crazy. And then, you know, you have those students who have unique situations, who have disabilities, or who have family members who have disabilities, or, you know, who have children, who have husbands who are, you know, have other dependents. So just understanding that and just allowing themselves to be more flexible and while we navigate this new educational structure.
And I definitely understand what you mean by you got a little stir crazy, because about the second month I had started feeling a little crazy too. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Delise now to do a couple of audience questions with some of the panelists. So it's over to you.
So one thing about mental health right now, it's not just the pandemic. There's just a lot of racism being called out, and people trying to bring awareness to systemic racism and asking for more justice and equity. And so this is a question from Will Del Pilar, who's also part of the Education Trust family. He wants to know, are racial issues more pronounced on your campuses? And I'm going to start with Ashton. Have you noticed racial issues? I know you've only been at this campus for just a hot second, but what have you noticed in terms of racial issues on campus?
I think they're a lot more aware. So like somebody talked about the microaggressions that would have just passed in regular day are being really blown and publicized in our community. I think especially because if we think about it, our education system was historically built only for a certain amount of people to succeed. And if we don't acknowledge that, and universities don't acknowledge that, then people and groups of people, especially minority students, are going to continue to slip through. And I think that's really been pronounced over the summer through all the social issues. And like Kadisha said, it's so much on media that we can't turn away from it. So I think like my school, we had a rally the other day and it was really awesome. They had a visual and you could go and watch the live, or you could go and if you registered, because they only had a limited amount of people that could go. I chose not to go to put myself in that position, but I watched it on live. But I think it's really important that they're allowing spaces to have these issues, but talked about, and people to talk about what their experiences are. But I think also we have to be aware that we're not so far as to separate groups entirely. I think that we can gravitate towards there very easily, that we're creating such a versus of color, and we're not focusing on our education student body as well and as a unity. And I think we just need to be careful that we're not creating such a divide where we have such a clash, and that we're taking focus away from equity and quality in education, and not white, black, and all other race of education.
No, it's a really fine line between bringing people together and maybe even dividing them more. So I'm glad you made that point. And Ruby, since you're kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum of your collegiate career, you're basically about to graduate, whereas Ashton just started. So have you noticed any change in conversation when it comes to issues of race? Are things more pronounced on campus than they were maybe when you initially started at Lipscomb?
Yeah, when I started at Lipscomb, I came from a very diverse high school. So I was exposed to like diversity in different cultures and different just opinions and thoughts, like just all throughout high school. So when I came to Lipscomb in 2016, it was definitely a different environment. Lipscomb is a predominantly white school. You know, a lot of the population is white. And I have seen a change in the last 4 years as far as like the types of conversations that people are willing to engage in on campus. But at the same time, there are still those microaggressions towards minoritized communities and people not wanting to, you know, change their mentalities or even begin to at least consider changing their mentalities. So in that aspect, you know, with everything, all the social issues that have happened recently here in the United States, I've been paying attention to how Lipscomb has responded and, you know, how they've reacted. And like, you know, the president sent out emails, and I've seen different organizations on campus, like, you know, put out statements and stuff. But I would actually I haven't seen much of, you know, my professors, like, are they engaging in those conversations, and like what are they doing for students, in classrooms to, consider different mentalities? So I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done there, and I am about to graduate from Lipscomb, so I guess that will be a challenge for, the lower classmen who are still remaining there. But I would like to see, even after I graduate, just how Lipscomb engages, in different conversations, and, looks into what's, implementing different trainings for anti-oppression on campus, or, trainings where, and developments where professors, students, faculty, just everyone can engage in these conversations that need to happen. And, we can start seeing more of a change on campus, as opposed to just, emails and words being said. We need action, not just those words.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, without the action, the words can just sound empty. They can feel meaningless. And I think a lot of students, from coast to coast, are asking for action. A lot of them have taken to Instagram and social media to really demand it. So I think that, that's become an important part of the conversation. And so earlier, William mentioned something about how getting through to the financial aid office can be just such a pain. It is, I would say, even pre-COVID, me and other reporters, other people, you always hear about these long waits when you call, long waits in line when you go in person. So how has COVID-19 changed your financial aid plans in terms of how you pay for your education, or has it changed that at all? And Ruby, actually, let's go back to you and just let me know if that's changed for you in any way.
Yeah, so I receive scholarships from my school. I'm in a program called Pionero Scholarship Program. So there's this scholarship specifically for minority students who are going to become teachers. So it's like a pipeline that prepares us to go back and teach in our local communities. And so I've been fortunate enough to have my tuition covered fully these last 2 to 3 years. But then, there are students who aren't as fortunate, and probably they lost their source of income, or they lost their job because of COVID. So on my end point, like, I didn't struggle with that because, as I said, I do have support from the school and scholarships, but I do know many of my peers who had to pick up, whatever job they could, or whatever job was available right now with COVID, to make up for the, the lost income and be able to pay for school. Because at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but like, you don't pay for school, there's only like a specific grace period that school's allowed, even with all this COVID stuff going on. And there's that added pressure of like, if I don't pay for school, I can't, continue with classes. So.
Well, that's wonderful that you have that financial support to help you get through to your goal of being a teacher. That's a big issue in education, that a lot of the students in high school and elementary school are students of color, but oftentimes the teachers are white. So it definitely is a situation where we need more of all of you in the classroom. Allie, I know you're an RA on campus, and so does that mean your room and board is covered, but the tuition is still left on your shoulders?
I am an RA. I get a small portion. I get half of my rooming covered, and I'm in quite other positions on campus that provide me with a small scholarship, but I still also pay for my education myself. Luckily, I was kind of taught to kind of raise money and kind of save it, and so I feel like I've been fortunate in this times to not desperately need something, but it just makes me feel even much more greater and much more grateful for that.
No, that's good. I'm always happy to hear that people are not struggling so much to pay, because I know college is very expensive. Ashton, since your university has required everyone to come back to school, what are they doing, to your knowledge, financially to make sure students can pay for school? Like, what are you doing for that?
I a lot of time, a lot of things that they're doing now is allowing a lot more student employment opportunities, especially through Zoom. Like they're having a lot of more Zoom employment opportunities, especially for students who are higher financial risk, which I think is very great. For me, I've experienced like a lot of craziness with financial aid, especially because, you know, with a lot of the postal system and the checks have been really hard to get to my university. So I've had several check scholarships that have been from other separate corporations and businesses that have gotten lost in the mail, and I don't know where this money is. And it's been a crazy time just calling the bursar's office and then calling this, and like there's not much you can do about it because there's so much delay on how money is getting everywhere, and there's like uncertainty as we keep talking about. So for me, it's been kind of like a whirlwind, but I'm blessed to like have my family who like is helping me like figure it out, because I'm like, oh, I have to do this, but then I have to figure that out at the same time. So I know there's a lot of students who have like a way more extreme experience with that, but I think my university is being pretty good as far as allowing employment options here that will accommodate for people who want to be on like face-to-face or who want to do on Zoom.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just kind of almost like a hodgepodge of situations. Like someone's got to call, someone's got to email, someone's got to check on the check in the mail. So hopefully, as we all kind of adjust to this new reality, some of those kinks in the system will work out. But it's already 5:03, so we are at the end of our program. And we need to close out. But thank you all so much for gathering with us today. You know, the attendees, the other people viewing and following along. This has been really informative to me, and I hope you all have kind of learned a few things about how to manage during this pandemic. And I hope for any administrators or professors listening, just things, you know, that they can do differently to improve this scenario. So yeah, this has been excellent, and I hope to speak with you all again, maybe for an interview for one of my stories. And we have some information, so if you want to read more about what students and parents, administrators are doing to manage, you can go to chalkbeat.org. You can go to heckingerreport.org. Both of us have newsletters and different ways to follow our coverage, so feel free to just follow along and reach out to me if there's a story that you feel like we're missing, or reach out to reporters at Chalkbeat as well. So we always need to hear more from students, not less from students. Trey, is there anything you wanted to say as we close out?
I was just happy to be here, and I was glad to be a co-moderator for today. I feel like we got to cover a lot of the important topics, especially that are correlating with education and COVID.
All right, cool. Well, that's it for us. Thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of your evening and stay safe. When I hear about these hurricanes, these wildfires, so it's so much we have to grapple with. So please stay safe, everyone, and just keep doing the best you can. Bye.